So yeah, so maybe just to begin, Farm to School BC, provincial organization. We are administered by the Public Health Association of BC and supported by the province of British Columbia. So I will give a formal introduction to Krystle when I pass the mic over to her in a few minutes, but myself, provincial manager of Farm to School BC, and I've been with the program about 7.5 years. My background is also in schoolyard gardens, cooking programs, etc. So I'd like to acknowledge that I am presenting today from the traditional ancestral unceded territory of the Hausut First Nation in the community of Moctezes. The word Hausut actually has two meanings. So facing opposite from the ocean, or people living with their backs to the land and mountains. As you can see, my son is riding his bike around with his back to the land and mountains right there at the edge of the community. The Hausut Nation are a member of the Nuu-chah-nulth Nations. They're in fact the largest Nuu-chah-nulth Nation with a population of over 2,000 people. And so I wanted to actually just loaded up a little video that I wanted to share that's from a Hausut that I thought would be nice. So just give me 1 second here to pull up this video. Just give me 1 second. Okay, share sound. Great. So maybe I tested the sound before, but watch your speakers there. Or if you got earbuds in, I don't think it'll be too loud. I'll bring up the volume a little bit. So this is actually an Hausut paddle dance. And I was at a potlatch about just before Christmas where they did this paddle dance, and it was really amazing. It was all women or younger kids, girls in the community who were doing it. So I just wanted to share about a minute of this. The designs on the back of the regalia, the right there are so pretty. It's not easy to see with this level of definition, but really gorgeous, and the drumming is so wonderful. Okay, I will come back to the presentation now. Okay, so as mentioned right at the beginning, but for any of you who have joined a little bit late, we are recording this, and we keep these presentations in our webinar drop-down menu on our website. So you can always find these after, and they usually are uploaded within a couple of days if there's anything you want to come back and reference. Maybe just a little housekeeping note, just for when we get to the question and answer period, you can use the little icon to put up your hand. Be mindful of the mic being on while you're there. And otherwise, let's get into it. So Farm to School BC, as I mentioned earlier, has been supporting across the province schools, K-12 schools since 2007, with a focus on engaging students in healthy local foods, hands-on learning, and school and community connectedness. Our core pillars are really focused in at this moment on healthy local food, hands-on learning, and school and community connectedness. So we really look to celebrate, embrace, and fund a diversity of food education programs across the province. We're really focused on community input, and we look to meet schools where they're at and to fund their unique needs. Just our core of our team here, and there's some of them on the call today. Myself, Madison, and Margot. and our regional coordinators. So one of the ways that we support across the province is through our regional coordinators, and we have one coordinator in each of the health authorities. And so many of you may know them. They used to be referred to as our community animators. And so if you are living in any of these different regions, you're welcome to reach out and see if you need any support. Most of them are on the call right now as well, so you may see them interacting. So about Farm to School BC, one of the core pieces of our program is in and around funding of schools. And so we've been together 18 years. We've funded 374 schools, and over 50,000 students have been engaged in our funded programs. We've also funded many thousand more in other engagement activities, including field trips and professional development type activities and in-class engagement. Here's just a number of the different types of activities that we fund and support, but it's certainly not an exhaustive list. We support many other types of activities, but usually we are really responding to the needs that come in from the schools themselves. So we're not really that restrictive on the types of food engagement or food literacy programs. Our own resources have often been tailored to whatever the current needs or interests are of educators and community. Many of you know about us through our annual grant stream. It opens up in October of each year, and we usually give out somewhere between 40 and 50 grants. The amount can vary. It's a relatively easy application process that can be done through online form or through Zoom meetings. So we've changed that a little bit, and schools have about 1 year to spend those funds. We offer support with our regional coordinators while schools are developing their programs. We focus on an equity model in which we fund 50% rural, remote, First Nations schools across the province, and it's continuing to grow in interest. We had 146 applications this year, and we're actively trying to figure out ways to support the non-funded schools. So a lot of our funding just went out the door, so this will not be open again until October, but just making sure that you know. And I'll mention this at the end, but you can sign up to our newsletters or follow us on social media to get little updates. We usually post about 2 weeks before it launches and do a webinar that talks about how to apply, etc. Some just larger projects of Farm to School BC worth noting. Rise Up project, which was engaging with youth and volunteer opportunities. Our Pollinator Award, which honors K-12 educators and their school environments each year. So you can see this little sort of trophy we give out here, the Pollinator Trophy. And this year we're actually modifying it a little bit, where there'll be an award that goes out to schools. So you can nominate a champion, nominate a pollinator or their school, and the money will go for you to be able to put on either a field trip or just do a school food celebration. So the funds will go directly to that. And then we will recognize your school through our different means online, et cetera, and you'll get this little trophy for a year. And then the spring celebration is essentially the events that come out of the pollinator now moving forward. I'm going to come back to talk about the school farm, the guide to growing a school farm, after Krystle's presentation. But just a couple other of the real popular ones that you can find on our website. If you go to the website under teacher resources, there's a drop down there. There's a lot of seasonal resources, garden related, indoor, some cooking ones. But here's just 3 of the more popular ones. Learning from the Land Toolkit is a resource that profiled different Indigenous plant and pedagogy programs from around the province, 3 case studies. So it showcased how they were developed, how they built relationships with local nations, what were the outcomes and the engagement with the students. We also created a number of different lesson plans that were connected to it, a directory of where to source Indigenous plants from across the province, and some kind of key takeaways of how to start an actual garden itself, like a budget and things like that. So that's a good resource. It's very beautiful as well. And Hands-on Food is looks to more engage activities directly in the classroom. So it can be anything from cooking to dehydration activities, even foraging, knife skills, things of that nature. This resource was developed with dietitians and community partners in the Kamloops region. And then, as I mentioned, I'll come back and talk a little bit about the guide to growing a school farm, which was developed in partnership with other farms that were happening in the province and are continuing to grow, and Sammy Blair and some others. So yeah, just mentioning again about Farm to School BC communications. So we are active on a number of social medias. Our website always has updates there, and you can sign up to our newsletters. We also have regional newsletters that go out that our coordinators manage that you can get signed up for there. And it focuses in on more of what's happening, what are the events, what are potentially funding opportunities, things of that nature that might be within your closer to where you specifically live. Whereas the greater Farm to School one is more high level. So do sign up to those if you're not. And our Facebook and other socials are very active as well. Okay, that's enough. That's enough of my talking. Now I will introduce our guest speaker, Krystle tenBrink. So we worked closely in the very beginning stages of developing the Squamish farm, but it has grown way beyond whatever we thought it was going to be when we helped assist in a little bit of like the very early infant stages of funding. And it's been very exciting for us to follow and keep in touch with Krystle and that project there. In fact, we're looking to develop another farm project in the north right now that one of our coordinators is working on. And Krystle's been so so great in being willing to consult on this project because it's really a standout example of the potential of a school farm and what it can bring to a community. And by no means is it a simple project, as you'll learn from her, but yeah, very excited to have her here. So just a little introduction. Krystle tenBrink is the Executive Director of Squamish Climate Action in Squamish CAN. And since 2010, she has been instrumental in strengthening community food systems through policy development, building community farms and gardens and school gardens. So I will stop sharing right now and pass it over. And just a reminder, we'll do some questions at the end. You can put them into chat or you can put your hand up and the Farm to School team will help navigate that with Krystle.
Okay, I'm just going to get set up here.
Sounds good.
Strange. 1 second. Just trying to see my notes and I can't find them.
Oh, if the key is with it, I've gotten trapped in this before too. So if you go to your, is it in PowerPoint?
Yeah.
If you go to beginning of slide,
yeah,
and then it pops up on your screen, and then I believe it's a left click, it'll drop the little menu down and it says show presenter view, and you click on it and it will show it differently for you than for us.
Okay, I have it. Sorry, folks, 1 moment. Let's see. Here we go. Can I get a thumbs up from you, Marcus, that you can see the full screen? Okay.
Yeah, full screen, no presenter notes.
Okay, that's great. 1 second. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Krystle. Thank you so much for having me today and for that thoughtful introduction. As Marcus mentioned, I work as the Executive Director for the Squamish Climate Action Network, and we've been around since 2009. And we built our first school garden program about 12 years ago, and it was on a 1/4 acre, and it's still alive and well, and in fact has been really the root of a lot of work that we've just sort of has snowballed over the last decade or so. And along the whole journey we've been working closely with Farm to School BC. So it's been really fun to be able to have our organization grow and yours grow at the same time. And the impact is so exciting. So I'm here as an uninvited guest on the lands of the Squamish Nation, and our school farm and many of our projects are an opportunity for the students and for community to be good stewards of the land. And so we really try to carry that forward in the thoughtful work that we do. And our organization is, our mission is mostly we strive to empower community members for just and actionable solutions towards the climate crisis through education policy development and systems change. And so I think of what I love about working with schools is that we're working within an existing system that we can't drastically change. So how can we make those improvements and intersect it into the day-to-day and year-to-year experience that those students and teachers and parents and everyone is part of. So I'm going to share with you all the fun, beautiful, light and fluffy highlights and amazing things about the farm. Then I'll get into the nuts and bolts of where did we begin? What are some of the, fun things that maybe we didn't anticipate coming up and navigating things. So some highlights for you. We opened up the farm in 2022. We built it that spring. And so just to put things in perspective, we didn't have a full season in 2022, but just to share with you, we've had already 100 students complete their farm studies elective. Since 2022, the fall, we've had 81 people in the last year, 81 families, low-income families receive a subsidized or partially subsidized harvest box, which was funding that Feeding Futures provided. In total in 2024, we had, over 1,100 harvest boxes. I think our big thing was we were able to, our goal was to make $60,000 this year in sales, and we were able to make over 70. So that was amazing. And I think a lot of factors go into that. Sometimes it's the season, it's obviously the staff and all of the other moving parts. So I won't go through all of them, but you can see some of these here. So lots of exciting successes. This was a lovely email that we received about someone who was low income, about they experience a tough time as it relates to financial uncertainty, and being able to access fresh and healthy food without shame or questions has been a relief for this person. And we heard a lot of these, and our organization doesn't necessarily specifically target working with low-income families. This was a new experience for us, a new group of people. I really loved the way that we ran the program. There was lots of learning lessons for us in terms of working with a different sort of group of folks and meeting them where they're at. But it was great. So it was, we're assessing and, figuring out where we're moving forward. This year, we were able to have this has been a 2-year plan, but we designed after lots of meaningful conversations and consultation with the Squamish Nation elders, with the Indigenous students and leadership and staff at the schools that were nearby, and some of the educators. And so we worked together with so many different community members and representatives and students to think about what does an Indigenous plant garden look like for us. Part of the inspiration of it was thinking about how some of the school food now has been used from the farm into the schools. It's been used a lot for one-off celebrations that the leadership class runs, the food and agriculture leadership class, of which I'll tell you a bit more about later. And we really were thinking and brainstorming, and students were excited to be able to sort of integrate small components of traditional plants or ways of harvesting and flavors into some of the foods as part of those celebrations. And of course, they have a forest right around them, so they could go harvest, but also they wanted to share sort of language and traditional uses. So we have this beautiful signage that was designed and made. We had Jasmine Baker, who was our Squamish Nation student and alumni, who did the translation. She worked really hard with her grandma and auntie to really practice the pronunciation of each of the plants. So this was the learning curve for her, and her goal is to become an ethnobotanist. So we're excited that this was an opportunity for her to sort of learn, and for us to sort of honor that journey for her. I'd love to play with you what this looks like, but I'm worried about all my screen stuff. So I think I might save it for the end, and I'll share it in the notes as well. Just so, anyway, you can go into our website and these signs will be on site, and you can hear how to say the plant name in the Squamish language. That was inspired, by the way, after I toured the Vancouver, the high school in Victoria. I think it was UVic High, perhaps, near Mason Street Gardens Farm. I had seen that they used to have a beautiful totem pole and a medicine wheel, and they had some signage with an audio component of it for users and visitors, and it was so beautiful. I really loved that additional audio component of it. So tour school farms is a piece of advice, I'd say. Of course, none of this would be possible without all of the folks that have worked, all the staff and volunteers and board members that have been working with us over the years. But in particular, this year was incredibly successful, mostly because of these three wonderful women, Marissa, Harriet, and Erin. Harriet is our school farm manager, and you'll hear me say this many times over and over, but if you have a school garden right now, or have a school farm or building one, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have the right person, like such a keen person, leading the way and really helping build on the vision that was or intention that was set with that particular project. So now that I've shared all the lovely, beautiful, light and fluffy stuff, I'm going to get into some of the nuts and bolts about how we sort of started developing this. So I'm not going to get into this, but essentially, when the funding came up from Farm to School BC to say, you know, they had $10,000, and I had a few people reach out to me, and they're like, "Oh, we'd really love a farm at our school." I was like, "Oh no, I don't have the energy for that. No, I'm not applying." And then another school reached out, and I was like, "No, not the right time." And then finally the high school reached out, a woman named Tammy, who is the vice principal, and she's like, "I love what you guys do at Mamquam. I just moved down here from Pemberton. There's the new leadership at the school. We want more students to have hands-on learning experiences to help them get credits to graduate." I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay, that was pretty convincing. Sure, let's have a conversation." So that's kind of how, in a very grassroots way, the ball got rolling with this. The first thing we did was we got together, figured out what a shared vision might look like, thought about how we might work together. Thankfully, this person, Tammy, she was like my equal at the school. So that her and I worked really closely to kind of just keep moving things forward, letters of support, developing a working group that would move this project forward. Yeah, she was so instrumental in being an internal advocate for the school district in helping us navigate operational barriers or some logistics. And of course, this was a big, ambitious project, and you really need that leadership at the school to help advocate for this shared vision. And I don't think we would be where we are without this key person. We did involve the parent advisory committee. Unfortunately, I kind of feel that as kids get older, there's maybe less parents involved. And so because our high school is grade 10, 11, 12, there wasn't as much engagement, but that's okay. We were able to involve some of the indigenous principal, the food studies teacher. We were able to join the club fair, and we really started showing up at the school. So people kind of were getting familiar with Squamish CAN. There's a farm, a school farm. I don't even know what that is. Like, it was so interesting to tell people about it. The students, they just couldn't even imagine what a school farm on their land looked like. So let me tell you what that kind of looked like. We took this bare land, and if you can see in the bottom left corner, this is the original plan and location for the project. And I'll share with you our land blessing event, the Squamish Elementary School was not happy with the location, so we moved it. And yeah, it's just really interesting how lots of things were happening in a very short period of time, because we knew we wanted to start building during spring break in March of 2022. So there was a lot of farm logistics to think about. And so having a farmer, which is Constance, the person who's been on the stage standing and who built the farm with me, she was really great at understanding like, okay, we need soil to come in. We're going to need gravel deliveries. We're going to need farms doing deliveries and pickups. And so we really started to establish, started thinking about the vision of like the operational side of things and where we were going to pull water from, where we were going to pull electricity. We wanted Wi-Fi on site. We really thought about a lot of the key components that we wanted, not just for the farm operations for the first few years, but 50 years down the road. We wanted to make sure that we were not relying on like 3G or 5G and we could have Wi-Fi as an example. Access to washrooms, access to all kinds of things. This person in here with the hat on is our director of operations, and he was a key person that we worked with to ensure final sign off from him. If you aren't working with your operations person, you don't have a project. Firm believer in that one. As we were figuring everything out and had the green light, we just started fundraising like crazy. And we did so much grassroots fundraising. We set a pretty ambitious goal to try to fundraise $75,000 through grassroots fundraising. We were able to meet that goal, but that included some grants as well. We did a lot of, we're in a small, tight-knit community of 25,000 people. So we did a lot of media. I was on the radio just casually talking to Darren McPeak from Mountain FM, which is our only radio station in Squamish. Thank you, Rogers. And then we were successful in the $10,000 grant from Farm to School BC. And the school, essentially, I sort of said to the school, we need to have our staff management covered for the first year. So I need $30,000 from you. And because it was sort of during COVID, they had some extra money. She's like, okay, we can do it. I'm going to commit to this. So the timing was right for us as well. Anyways, we were able to fundraise in a year and a half, 2 years, about $230,000, which when I say that out loud, it's a lot. Like our organization only made under 150 a year. So then for this, our next project to take us over, it was a lot. It was a lot of growth at the same time, but it was exciting to have so many different fundraising opportunities for people to participate in shaping this farm, of which has become such a dear community asset now. We hosted a land blessing with Suecia Spaquis, and we danced and we distributed some like lavender around the field. And the students were really involved, and it was so wonderful. And it really felt like, I think that was for me maybe one of the most instrumental days where it really felt real, and it felt like we were it was like a step in the right direction, and it just honoring the space before we broke ground was really important. So now we kind of get into the building of it. Before we broke ground, we established a farm use agreement, and I can't say enough about how important this is. For not only maybe some insurance purposes, but also just having an agreement laid out of who's responsible for what, if this happens, all the what ifs. But this is what it looked like before. It was like an old track and field area. We tried to use as much of the grass as possible. We wrapped it in tarps so we didn't have any wasted material. So that was really great. We basically just dug a giant mud pit. I mean, people must have been, the neighbors were probably freaking out. I'm pretty sure they were. This is me in the middle here. I mean, I was in the ground digging and installing an electrical conduit for days. I can't tell you how much mud was in my shoes because it rained and we just had snow melts. But as we started making this giant mud puddle, like people were wandering over. We had students coming by. This is Marin, our previous regional coordinator. We got her working as well. I'm sure it was in her job description. We had a lot of people just show up and donate their hands and their bodies and their machines and their skills, and it was really beautiful. We tried to involve the as many classes as possible, which included the carpentry class. We got them to install the fence. And full disclosure, as you are trying to involve external groups or classes, that management piece becomes really important, that there's consistency and follow through and follow up. If we did not have a manager or myself, like a project manager who was responsible for communicating these core pieces with these groups, we would not be able to properly oversee this. So I think working this way is great, but it also takes more effort. But the students, the carpentry class had so much fun. They were learning. They didn't really know what was going on either. Like everything was happening all at once, but the carpentry classes also built their tool shed. So we've worked with them in a few different ways. This is kind of what it looked like still in June. The greenhouse was going up in June. We found some great businesses that were willing to just step up and say, yeah, I'm going to donate a shipping container and I'll retrofit it for you for cold storage in an office. At lunchtime and at recess, the kids were just running out and helping us. That was not organized. They were just so excited to get potatoes in the ground and move soil and get dirty. In terms of our school programs, there's so much going on. We started slow and built it. I will say one of the things that I felt that we didn't do a great job of, was that I think we built too much too fast. Not built, but it's tried to get the school programs going too much too fast. And one of the biggest takeaways I have from this is how do you balance? We've had to learn how to balance between production of the farm and the financial sustainability side, because that was such a huge goal for us by year 3, and the education. And it is hard to do it's hard to do a good job of both of them. But if you can, build it in, I think the production side is like, get your farming systems going and feeling confident with that. And then you can start to you can add in bits as you're establishing those systems, but then really building out more of a robust program once things are going is a good learning lesson. In year 2, I would say it was our most challenging year in sales and staff challenges, just with capacity and putting too much on the manager. And so that year, I would say we learned so much and then completely shaped everything for year 3 in order to have the success that we just had. So, we'll learn from failure for sure, or challenges. Here's some quotes from some of the students when we've surveyed them at the end of the farm studies class. And some of the, I just shared good quotes here, but there's some quotes or some feedback that was, the lessons are too long. I don't want to be in the classroom, or I want to be in the classroom more. So we did have some good critical feedback as well, of which is shaping our next farm studies class. We have 2 classes. We have a farm studies class and a food and community leadership class. That leadership class is Tuesdays every week all year. And we're now only running the farm studies course in the spring term. The most amount of work is in the spring. Of course, there's a lot of work in the fall, but we wrap up the farm in December, and then there's Christmas break and stuff like that. So it just made sense to run farm studies in the fall, and then in the spring term. And then in the fall and spring term, we have a farm club, of which we've organically found some really keen students that love to put on overalls, pop their headphones in, and just grind out some soil moving and compost flipping, and they love it. So there's I think some organic ways of getting engagement, and then obviously some more structured ways. We're a completely fenced, locked areas with sort of designated open hours. So I think it's important to also set some healthy boundaries, because it's incredible when you're surrounded around over 1,500 students within our area, plus we're on the main walking path to get to downtown. We are constantly bombarded by people coming by and telling us their own farming or garden story and wanting to get involved. And while we absolutely love that, it can also suck up a few hours each day of just doing the community engagement. So heads up on that one if you're in a really public location. We do sell food to the school. We have found that it has been challenging, quite challenging, depending on the capacity of the chef. And I generally feel, if any of you are working with schools, you may know already that capacity feels limited all the time. So we're constantly trying to figure out how can we make it easy to work with them. And I think our focus is not going to be on necessarily selling food to the school or even donating food to the school, although that will happen. It will be on getting the students out and getting them hands-on experiential-based learning. Okay, moving through, and I'll end it in, okay, I'm going to keep going so we have enough room for questions. We had the students involved in the design proposal for the Indigenous Garden as well, which was really wonderful. And so we've tried to include the students at every stage as much as possible. And again, we do acknowledge that's a lot of work. We've hosted all kinds of things on site. Our Minister of Food and Agriculture, Lana, has been onto site when we hosted over 100 elected officials for the BC, British Columbia Union of Municipalities conference that happens every year. Do a farm tour. And we've had lots of celebrations and open houses and plant sales. And it's just part of this everyday life now in Squamish. It's really exciting. In terms of selling food, what we did last year was we sold a bit to the school cafeteria. We had a public CSA box. We had a private one that was the subsidized one for families of the schools. Farm stand did really well. We had one restaurant and one small grocer. In 2022, we made $13,000. In 2023, we made $12,000. And then this year was over 70,000. Our goal for next year is 100. That's Harriet for you, our school farm manager. She's really ambitious. So I'm just letting her go for it. And I can't, stress enough about hiring the right person, being able to juggle many components, thinking about the day-to-day farming, but also communicating that out to the public. Looking ahead, here's a few things from Harriet. I won't read through all of them, but we're looking to increase and fill up those small little spaces because we're on about 1/4 of an acre. We've built out the third and final phase, which is the South Side Garden. We'll be hosting an official Indigenous garden opening, of which I'll be sure to invite you folks to. We have finally, and this took a year, established a contract to be an official seller to Vancouver Coastal Health's Squamish Hospital and long-term care facility as a way to improve healthy local organic food into the hospital and into our long-term care facility, which feeds 100 people a day, 3 meals a day. We're so excited. We're so excited. And so we've been working with them to understand the types of foods that do best with their clients. For example, if you wear dentures, eating things like spinach could be harder because of stems and things like that. So small examples for you there. Almost done here. Yeah, well, in summary, that was a lot of things. I really want to I almost wonder if I should just leave it there so I can answer questions. But essentially, no, I'm going to share just a few quick highlights. Really establish your key players, invest in figuring out who your core team is, having a dedicated leader and staff person to really keep the ball rolling. Make sure you do your due diligence in meeting with as many community groups as possible to invite them to participate in shaping this project in whatever way you can. So there's no surprises. If there's no surprises, you're likely to get green lights from everyone and less resistance. Connect with the building department from your local government to figure out what permits you need for plumbing, electrical, shipping containers, sheds, greenhouses. Develop a course and curriculum, and don't do it from scratch. Borrow ours, rip off and duplicate. Brent Mansfield's favorite thing to say, R&D. We designed our course as an elective, but I would recommend to you all to make it an ADST, Applied Design Skills Technology course, and or a science credit. I think that we would see, you know, different folks or more flexibility for students, whereas the students, they only get so many elective credits. If possible, secure an agreement, get clear on your communications. You are a business. You're going to need to brand it. You're going to need to be really clear about like, what are you offering? What, you know, who are you selling to and things like that. And figure out your sales channels. We have lots of advice for you. I think location has to do with a lot of it. Try to get the students involved in everything, and don't forget to celebrate. And I will end it there and hand it back to Marcus or someone to facilitate questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Krystle. Yeah, I saw a couple little questions come in there that maybe we can jump straight into, but I really appreciate the presentation. I know that it's just like a little fraction of what is involved in your specific project, certainly. So maybe we'll do a few questions here. So yeah, feel free to put up your hand if you like, and it will make it be in order. Plus, I'll just take a little bit of questions in here. I think the first one was, it's from Jamie Smith. Can you please speak to how the farmers and teachers are paid for their time?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie, for your question. So the school district, when we wrote the curriculum for 2 classes, those 2 classes got board approval. So they're not Ministry of Education approved yet. And so there was board approval for them, which meant they were able to get money allocated and put into the schedule for the following year. For whatever semester and things like that. You know, the school sorts all that out. And then, so the school paid and pays for the teacher who's the farm studies teacher. And then that teacher works with our farm manager. So as a nonprofit, as an external group, we're responsible for the day-to-day operations of the farm. And the farm studies class and comes out and works on a schedule with various lessons and activities. They kind of work together, and they work really closely together. And now we have 3 years of curriculum development and lots of takeaways and lessons learned. So happy to share some of that with you. I think it'd be great for us to actually establish it really well, and then maybe work with Farm School BC and share some of those curriculum pieces. Hopefully that answered your question. Oh, and then so the teachers paid by the school and the farmers are paid by sales, but before we were making good money, we were constantly just trying to limp along grants and Canada Summer Job funding, youth employment skill funding. So we were just really matching as many pieces as we possibly could. In 2023, when we didn't have a great growing season because of the competing demands of education and a lack of balance between education and production, we ended up laying somebody off, the manager off a little earlier. It was okay, but also, yeah, that's why I say the production side is really important, because that's the financial piece of it.
I have a comment from Sheila that mentions local contractors with machines to donate is awesome. Another comment from, do you want to speak to that, or you just a good thumbs up for that one? Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I think when you look at little ways that businesses can be involved, there's a really good chance that people will donate a machine and maybe a machine operator to do the hardscaping or the digging if you're installing water lines, electrical, that kind of thing. So it is worth the savings, because a machine operator can cost a few $100s per hour. So those are little ways that small businesses or independent contractors, parents, can be involved.
Maybe I'll just add to that. How do you recognize them when you do get the support from them? Because I know that really takes, especially in your case, a community involvement. What are your examples of recognition for that?
Yeah, we basically created a bit of a one-pager that was our sponsorship page. When you donate in-kind value or cash, this is what we're going to do with your logo and acknowledge and honor you throughout the process many times on social media, website, and our newsletters and signage on site. So we're actually finalizing our signage right now. Yeah.
Jamie Smith asked, how can we access your curriculum?
I can, I'm not sure how organized it is because Erin Eidsvik, Miss Eidsvik, the farm studies teacher, has it. So I can maybe I action that for myself and try to get you that information. I can also connect you with Erin or Harriet, who are both of those folks, if you're quite keen and looking to try to get a hold of it soon. Yeah, I can try to get that, and maybe Marcus, maybe we can discuss and share it around. We're really looking, the part of the sort of motivation with this project is to be a model that people could easily access to adopt in their own communities. So we're trying to invest in some of those pieces, including trying to get approval from the Ministry of Education eventually to get it ministry approved classes.
Nice. Jamie says her mic's not working, but she's nodding and appreciates it a lot and says, hi, Chika. Would love to connect, whatever. Ashley Aaron says, how do you deal with legalities of selling food from this? Full disclosure, I'm in Ontario, so rules are probably different. Trying to figure out whether you need to be an official farm to sell food banks.
Yeah, so you'll want to just talk to your what are they called? Your environmental EHO, your environmental health officers, what they're called in BC. And if you were starting a business or any kind of food business or preservation business, like an agri-food business, you would contact them to work with them on food safety stuff. But for small scale farms, and even just generally for farms, the only requirement is that especially for vegetables and herbs and fruit, there's a lot of low risk. If we were doing livestock, that would be a lot different. Eggs, again, very different. But because vegetables and fruit are considered low risk, it's the only requirement was that we needed a clear white hose for our washing station and like proper hand sanitization and stuff. And not an issue at all. I think there's just hardly any cases coming out of small scale organic farms. So that's a win, but definitely just chat with your EHO or talk to maybe some of the farms at the market and find out what they do.
I think we got room for maybe one more question if anyone's got one burning. Sheila says business and community engagement is imperative. Megan.
Yeah.
With a question.
Yeah, got one. Thanks for sharing, Krystle. It's been so exciting to kind of meet you at first in that second very challenging year. And I get emotional every time I hear about how your year this year has been. So I'm so excited for you guys. I'm really curious because I know there's other school districts that are looking at different models of trying to implement school farms. And I was wondering if you noticed any specific like strengths or weaknesses that you had being like a third party that was partnering with a school district versus having the school farm development be internal to a school district. And it's kind of hard to speak on because you only have one half of that experience, but so yeah, sticking points or things that you were very grateful that you were coming from an outside organization.
I mean, yeah. I think when you come from an outside organization that has, like us, a decade and a half of building integrity, you have trust right away with that organization. And it was part of our strategic plan to do this project. And it was also part of policy development as part of our Squamish Valley Agriculture Plan to also do this project. So we've been talking and putting the feelers out there in different ways to ensure that when we do this, it was going to be well supported across the board. I understand and can acknowledge that it takes an incredible amount of dedication, passion, and love and money to do this work and do it the way that we've done it. It just so happened, I think, because of timing outside of the pandemic, people were ready for this project. We were just putting so many resources into this. We do run a community farming project as well, and we sublease out our to small farmers. And I also think that model could work great if you have a really great farmer who was really community minded and willing to build relationships with the school community, sort of like what was happening in Victoria at Mason Street Farm. I think that was, unfortunately, I know the farm has been like, I don't know, tractored over and some really horrible things have happened. But Mason Street Farms was an established farm, and then Jesse, the owner, I believe his name was Jesse, had a second plot at the high school, and we went and toured it, and I was really inspired by his project as well. I think there was a lot of less engagement with the schools because there's a capacity challenge, right? He's trying to focus on production, whereas education can really pull you out of. Whereas if you could maybe get together and get like a second person in there to hire, there's an opportunity. And I think in Abbots or Aldergrove or Chilliwack, there's also, they work with another private farm as well. So there's so many different models. I think it depends on the nonprofit. I could talk about this for a long time, but hopefully that answered your question, Megan.
Thanks, Krystle. Thank you so much again for presenting. We have just a couple last little things to go through here, and I noticed there were a few more questions jumping in there, starting, I believe, at Anne Marie, if you wanted to do some chat responses there. Looks like some good questions. I wanted to, so we had created, there was a number of partners involved in it, and we got funding through Victoria Foundation and also McConnell Foundation, and we developed a really useful resource that can be found on our website that can answer a lot of the questions. And I think it's a really robust document. And so I just wanted to share that with you quickly right now. And so you can find the guide to growing a school farm on the Farm to School BC website. Maybe Madison, you can put a link in there in the chat for people to grab. It's under the teacher resources dropdown right here, where you can find a lot of other ones, including Learning from the Land Toolkit, which highlights Indigenous Plant Gardens, which Krystle actually mentioned visiting at Vic High. That was one of the projects that was highlighted there. But you can download the guide, and you can also go into specific categories and sections with like downloadable sections within the guide to growing a school farm. And I just opened up some tabs just to kind of quickly go through and just give you a little sneak peek into it. But covers a lot of different areas, including background, what is a school farm, why start a school farm, how it increases academic and professional opportunities, building the next generation of farmers, contributes to food security, gets into deep details on what it takes to build a school farm in terms of funding, roles, responsibilities, etc. It gives a number, 7 different examples of school farms. So obviously Krystle's is very robust, big budget, but there's lots of different ways you can, different sizes, different outcomes and goals. So we detailed a number of different ones there. And so there's a section within it that is lessons learned. And so it's really a high level section about key takeaways for educators and what it means to build strong relationships and partnerships, the potential of youth empowerment with school farms. This is an example of what some of the case studies look like if you were to visit this section in here. So it talks about each one of them is sort of modeled the same way. So school farm beginnings, the infrastructure and distribution channels needed, connections to curriculum of each of the different case studies. It talks about their size, the sort of who manages it, and kind of a little bit of breakdown. So they're all looking kind of similar to this. So it's kind of inspiring to kind of toggle through and see these different examples. We also loaded up some different examples of the courses, the board authorized courses from start to secondary here. So it shows what 12 credit semester courses would look like, connections to biology, science, agriculture 12, etc. So that's kind of a whole section within the document. And lastly, we even put in an example of a contract for those who are just getting serious about taking this in there. So this was a contract we developed, and you can take and borrow for helping to develop your own relationship with a farmer or a nonprofit, etc. So yeah, just wanted to point that resource out that you can find on our website. And I'll just bring up the last couple slides here. I see we're at 2 minutes to go. So, okay. I was told in the chat that you weren't seeing some of my early slides here when I was presenting. So I just popped this one up to let you, my territorial acknowledgement slide, because I was explaining a scene that no one was knowing what I was talking about. But yeah, it was just showing the background of how's it, my son there in the skate park with his bike. So our next webinar that we're going to be hosting will focus on school meal programming. So it's titled Growing a Sustainable School Meal Program. It'll be on a Thursday after school, similar to this one, 1 hour. And it'll focus on Nourish Cowichan's program, which is really a leader, one of the leaders, I would say. There's lots of rising examples that are connecting to community, thinking about the connection to the classroom, thinking about healthy, equitable kind of meals, etc. So Fatima, the executive director and executive chef, will be joining us to do our next month's webinar. So please do sign up through. We're about to put out the registration for this. We're just getting in the final details, but you'll see that get posted to our socials and on our website. And as always, you can follow us in these different ways. And so wanted to thank you so much again, Krystle. Thank you, of course, again for joining. Always amazing work that you're doing there. Keep up the good work. $100,000 goal. I like that number. That's incredible that you're going to possibly get to that. So congratulations on all of your efforts. And we'll say goodbye to everybody here now. The video will be uploaded within the next couple of days, and hope that you all get an opportunity to engage in a school farm of your own. Okay, take care now, everyone.
Thank you. See you.